transform your identity. This version of you, who you are right now, is not optimal. You must become stronger, more wise, more calculated, more efficient, more faith-driven. And you may ask why, which is a fair question, but it is because this is the only path to true fulfillment.
Progress is not made sitting on the couch. Progress is not made sitting back on base. Progress is made getting outside the wire. Because not everything's gonna be perfectly lined up for you. You're not gonna get the resources you want. You're not gonna get that call that you expect. You're not gonna get the support that you need. And you can let all of that hold you back, or you can go. I recommend you go. Go criteria. The criteria is, we're going. That's what we're doing.
The work comes before the belief. No one believes in you. You may not even believe in you until you start the work. The work always comes first. The belief follows. Stop waiting for their belief. Start making them believe. Get to work.
You either win or you give up before you win. There are no other outcomes. There are always plenty of reasons to quit. You just gotta have more reasons to keep going. But you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish when you give yourself no choice. When you remove quitting as an option, success happens by default. 3 things to succeed: the balls to start, the brain to learn, and the heart to never quit. And the good news is, you already have all 3. You just need to do so many reps, it'd be unreasonable for you to fail. Because if you never stop, and if you never stop getting better, you will die or you will get there.
The majority of the fears that we have are not life or death fears. They're not those kind of fears. But through our imagination, we blow them out of proportion and we give them more power than they actually have or deserve, and we permit them to govern our lives. We permit them to determine how far we can stretch out on our dreams and discovering our stuff. And as we begin to look at ourselves and begin to, wait a minute, just getting to the point as you assess yourself and begin to prove yourself and just say, wait, hold a minute. I've been sweating this out. What's the worst thing that can happen to me on this? Will it kill me? Will I die? Why am I going through all of these changes over this? How much power does this really have? And am I the one that's feeding the power into it?
This is a pretty important one. Everything changed for me when I realized that we're not meant to feel excited and perfect all the time. I started accepting that where I am right now is where I'm genuinely meant to be. Tough days are all a part of the process. Lean into them. Bad days are also part of a very good and meaningful life. So on my toughest days, I think about getting through one more day, one more workout, one more rep.
People know that it's virtuous, right, to make a promise and keep it for somebody else, because everybody wants to be a hero externally, but then nobody is their own hero. Nobody says, I'm gonna keep a promise for me, and then show up over and over and over again and see what happens. And the people that do, they kind of say all the things that I say, which is, oh, keep a promise to yourself, show up every day. Wisdom can be heard, it can only be understood once acted upon. We might take these statements that have come from actual experience of living through these things, doing these things, putting it to practice. 90% of people don't give a shit. The other 10% will hear it, but not listen. 1% really think about it, and then 0.00001% actually do something about it.
It's not about being perfect. It's about just every day, one step at a time, trying to be better, trying to do more. And I think a lot of people are struggling to find that purpose, but it's okay. You will find it. Do not give up. Saying those things to yourself, and you will eventually find it.
This is the blueprint for my life. I couldn't see myself becoming a farmer or a worker in a factory or anything like that. I felt that I was born for something special, for something unique, for something big.
You have to be brave. You have to be tough. You have to have the discipline to follow through.
Way back when I started training, I visualized what my body should look like to be the best in the world. I was born with an incredible willpower and an enormous positive attitude all my life. I mean, whatever I wanted, I knew I wanted for a reason, because whatever I started, I could see as a finished product. There was never one negative impulse in the last 15 years. Can you imagine you have to doubt that you maybe don't make it? Maybe I will never be in Mr. Universe. That destroys the whole thing. You got to have faith in your vision.
And here's the one the judges find most pleasing. Arnold Schwarzenegger of Santa Monica, California. Born 29 years ago in the Austrian Alps, son of a local police chief. He spent his boyhood at skiing, boxing, weightlifting, soccer. A lifetime athlete. His body has put him on the way to becoming a millionaire.
My parents wanted me to have a normal life.
Schwarzenegger's vision paid off in titles. 5 times Mr. Universe, 6 times Mr. Olympia.
You see, if you don't have a vision of where you go, and if you don't have a goal where you go, you drift around and you never end up anywhere. It's like you can have the best ship in the world, you can have the best airplane in the world. If the pilot or the captain doesn't know where to go, it would just drift around. It would not end up anywhere, or most likely in the wrong place.
And then, when I had this vision in front of me all the time, I then could go after that. I mean, you have to have the kind of a mind as a sculptor has, because a sculptor has to do the same thing. He has to look at his art and say, well, it's still not in proportion. I have to take a little bit away here, or I have to put more on here to make it get into proportion. And the same a bodybuilder has to do with his body.
You have to have tunnel vision. And you got to have blinders on and not to see anything that is on the left and the right side, and just really focus, keep your eye on the ball. You have to focus on the thing that you really want to be the best at. And that's what I did, because you cannot be good in everything and you cannot do everything and at the same time be a champion in one thing. There is no such thing. So I decided I wanted to be a champion. I decided that I wanted to go all out.
Michael Jordan said in one of his interviews, when they said, "You are unbelievable, you're the greatest basketball player of all times." I mean, tell me about that. And he says, well, you're just mentioning the successes. But he says, for me to become the greatest basketball player, I missed 9,000 shots when I was playing basketball at the NBA games. So during these games that he was so successful, he missed 9,000 shots. Does it make him a failure? No. He's one of the greatest basketball players of all times, but he failed 9,000 times. Do you get it? We all fail. We all have losses. This is okay. And this is why I say don't be worried about losing, because when you're afraid of losing, then you get frozen. It's okay to fail. Let's just go all out and give it everything that you got. That's what it is all about. So don't be afraid to fail.
It is very important that you don't listen to the naysayers, because in every step of the way, when you make decisions like, I want to be a bodybuilding champion of the world, people say this is impossible, this is an American sport, it's never going to happen. When I wanted to be in the movies, they said you have an accent, it's never going to happen. No one ever became a leading man when you have an accent. You have a huge body, you weigh 250 pounds, you look like a monster.
Imagine, you go from studio executive to studio executive, from agent to agent, from manager to manager, and they all said exactly the same thing. Now that's very encouraging, isn't it? But you know something? I didn't give a shit. I believed that I can be a leading man. I believed that I could be another Clint Eastwood, or another Burt Reynolds, or another Warren Beatty, or whatever those characters were, Charles Bronson and so on. I believed that I could be those people. I said, there's enough room on that ladder that I can fit up there. And I looked back again and learned from what I learned in sports. In my case, in bodybuilding. It's all about the hard work that you put in. I said to myself, in bodybuilding, I worked out 5-6 hours a day. I'm going to do the same thing now for acting. And of course, I went to college to study English, acting classes, and all of this stuff. All day long, I worked and I worked and I worked.
Even in politics, when they ran for governor, they said, are you crazy? You're an actor. You're a businessman. I mean, you're not a politician. You should start to be a mayor first and maybe a assemblyman or senator, but not to be around for governor. So I never listened to the naysayers because I believed what Nelson Mandela said, that everything is always impossible until someone does it.
Work your ass off. There is no magic bill. There is no magic out there. You cannot get around. You have to work and work and work. I can tell you,
In order to be complete, and that's when you really have a 100% chance at being successful. When you have a complete situation, that means that you have developed your body, meaning your health, your strength, your energy, and all of that makes you much more positive, right? Because that's when you wake up, when you feel strong and you feel fit and you ride the bicycle in the morning, the whole world looks much more bright. So that the training of the body, extremely important. The training of the mind, extremely important. That's why I say to people, I say, you got to educate yourself, you got to read something every day, you got to learn a new language, you got to just always improve and look at what can you do to improve your business or your life in general. So to develop the mind, and then to develop the spiritual side and the soul, extremely important also. So if we put those three things together, we have total completion.
and it's very important to understand that we function better if there is no safety net, because plan B becomes a safety net. It says that if I fail, then I fall and I get picked up and I have something else there that will protect me. And that's not good, because people perform better when there's no safety net. People perform better in sports and everything else if you don't have a plan B. I've never ever had a plan B. I say I made a full commitment that I'm gonna go and be a bodybuilding champion. I made a full commitment that I'm gonna be in America. I made a full commitment that I'm gonna get in the show business and I'm going to be a leading man. No matter what it takes, I will do the work. I will do the work over and over and over until I get it. And the same was in politics, in everything like that. So to me, it is very dangerous to have a plan B, because you're cutting yourself off from the chance of really succeeding. And the reason, one of the main reasons why people want to have a plan B is because they are worried about failing. What is if I fail, then I don't have anything else? Well, let me tell you something, don't be afraid of failing, because there's nothing wrong with failing. You have to fail in order to climb that ladder.
I used to work in an Alzheimer's clinic when I was trying to get into medical school. And once in a while, these older folks, they would have dementia. Parts of the brains would literally wither, like the flesh would wither. It's not just the thinking and the electricity. And hidden painting abilities would come out. And I'm not talking like they're gonna be in a museum at some point, but a dramatic change in the way they wrote, in their ability to paint landscapes. And those kind of things make me think there's a lot of untapped potential. So those examples, when I take care of brain injured, it's not all sad cases. They can be phenomenal in some ways. And you learn that there's so much going on in the brain that we are not seeing on the daily level. So I think there's a lot of potential we haven't tapped into that we could if we structured things better. Anything difficult where you have to think is good for your brain. If you ask Usain Bolt, how do I get stronger legs? Run. It's intuitive. But the flesh in our skulls, it's meant to think and feel. And that is the power of self-growth. And it's a thinking machine, it's a thinking flesh that you actually have to use or to protect itself, because it's an energy hog, right? It's 3 pounds, but uses 20%. If you're not using parts of it, it'll program itself to let those parts of the garden wither. So the diversity of thinking and the depth of thinking, just one level past what you're used to, is the way to keep the whole garden flourishing. And it is a garden, and there's chemicals, there are things moving, there are different types of brain cells, it's not just neurons. So I would try to give that metaphor analogy, if you will, that it's a garden and you have to irrigate it and stimulate and tend to all the corners, particularly the ones you're starting to neglect. Then the creative things happen. You don't just sit down and have them happen. You got to work and dream and go hard. And on top of that, something creative can happen. So now we have the understanding that the brain is meant to think. The brain is also meant to command your body to move. And absolutely, the minute you don't use your left hand, the right parietal lobe of the motor strip says, I'm not going to use much. I'll shave down that density of those brain cells a little bit. So that's where movement's important. And then the other thing is navigation. When you see old people and they lose their way home, well, that has a particular address also. Many things are global in the brain, but navigation is in the temporal lobe and they have dementia in that area. Navigation also is spatial awareness is a function of the brain, and sometimes when we're on our phones too much, we don't have that. So my kids, I tell them, don't look down, not religiously or adamantly, but try to just remember our route and just look up and see how far you can get. I think those habits will help us as we get less young. And those are practical things we can do during the day. And as far as the other element is brain training, it doesn't have to be some weird game that's not intuitive. I think brain training just means learning as a habit, one step past where you're comfortable. If you're reading it, you know it, your brain's it's an idle. If it's too hard, it's not even engaged. I'm not even gonna win this race. I'm not gonna kick in the second gear. So just like video games, just good enough to get to the next level, right? They don't hit you with the 5th level, the tilt level up front. It's level 1 to level 2, level 2 to level 3. And that's what learning is. So despite your knowledge and intellect, it's just that level right beyond you that is brain training. So you don't have to buy an app. You just have to challenge yourself and think. Brain's a hybrid vehicle. It grew, it evolved through thousands and thousands and thousands of years of lots of food scarcity. You didn't eat all the time. And so it's got a backup mechanism called ketones. So after 16 hours, if you don't put glucose in and the liver's done releasing the glucose it's held onto through glycogen reserves, then it'll start burning fat. It'll clip off those oxygens and hydrogens and they'll make ketones out of it. Intermittent fasting can also help you lose weight. I think that's why most people are interested in it. But it's the way the brain prefers to get its fuel source. And it's based on a diet, lessons about dieting learned through controlling epilepsy and seizures in kids in areas where there's no medicine. Now, intermittent fasting is back and forth, glucose and then ketones, glucose and then ketone. But for kids, if you just get them almost nearly all ketone as the source that goes up to the brain through an all-fat diet, their seizure rates go down. So that's proof that food changes mind. So this whole myth about you only use 20% of your brain, no, we use 100% of our brain, and pictures show that. But to get things done, we might only use 15, because efficiency is about ruts, like dominoes falling in a certain path. And the best way I can explain it is, as you grow, the brain, the way the electricity flows, the way the connections prioritize, is a bit like skiing down a mountain, creating these electrical grooves of sort, where if you see something, you see a cliff, fear, it goes down a certain path. And every time you do that and you've reinforced it, it actually becomes less expensive energy-wise to follow and fall into that habit. So these pathways, these habits in our mind, these rituals, these things that are good for us, we want to hold on to those. But a lot of them have become deeply carved, routes down the mountain. And filling those in, bearing them, and finding healthier ones is going to be an energy expending process. The effort will be harder in the beginning, and then as you create a new route down the mountain, you can condition yourself to having more favorable and constructive responses. That's the best way I can explain is why effort will lead to change, and your most effort will be spent in the beginning, and then you can change your emotional and cognitive responses by conditioning yourself to find a different route down the mountain. Depression, OCD, and obesity, the drive to eat, it can all be modulated, and they're all housed near each other. That speaks to what they are, is an imbalance of the emotional drive with the ability for the frontal lobes to tamp down some of these instincts. It's instinctive to eat. Sometimes it can feel instinctive to be depressed. And sometimes obsessive compulsion is a part of our brain, and it's a natural part of our brain. It's okay to have those feelings. When you have them too much, the imbalance isn't just electrochemical in those emotional hubs. It's the frontal lobes not accessing their potential to tamp down some of the emotions. That thinking of creating new habits, creating new values, creating less triggers in your life, that's the opportunity that we all have. And I think that's the project you're working on. What's the stuff we can control without zapping ourselves and without putting pills in us? Those things set the boundaries, but the frontal lobe regulation of how we feel is in your own command. Thought can change how fast your heart beats. Why wouldn't we believe that thought can change those subcortical structures about anxiety and depression? If you get depressed, you're sort of, you can get stuck. But people who aren't having those mental health issues, but just want to be better and live a more rich life in the sense of personal experience, we can think about our lives and our habits and triggers and create effects inside us. The mind-body connection is mind down to body. And many people feel, body back up to mind, and that's where meditation and meditative breathing come in. It's not a simple one. It's not a quick fix. It's not gonna be a bullet. It actually takes work. You mentioned repetition. It takes work, it takes effort, and there is no shortcut to it, but it's a glacial change that can happen over a few months to a few years. And I think once, like people go to the gym, they can't not go to the gym anymore. I think people who find these rituals and habits that make them feel better, they become addicted to that, and they're constructive and they're not pharmacologic. You exercise and it releases it, it showers itself. The brain says, hey, I'm feeling good, this is good, I like this. I'm gonna create a new rut. I'm gonna remind you, you feel good when you run. The brain will shower itself with growth factors. There are growth factors. The brain says, hey, the electrochemical balance is better with us. So I think that's where you get the runner's high. It's not just adrenaline. It's not dopamine is a happy chemical. I'm jacked up, I'm on adrenaline. It's just such a complex ecosystem. And rather than feeling intimidated by that, to me, I just see opportunities on how people can, improve their lives. Changing what shows up on the counter is powerful. And if we ate less and if we ate efficiently and we did, it's a less carbon imprint, I think all of those things is good for the planet, it's good for us, it's mind and body, and then it's also communal. Then it goes to the next generations. It's not just something I did. And then I think it can perpetuate, so it's not just an individual thing.
You ask the person, why are you so unhappy? Why are you so frustrated? Why are you so resentful? The moment you ask that, their brain is going to associate that emotion to a past event. That's because they have nothing to look forward to in their future. So if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, it just means to me that you're more in love with your past than you are with the future. So how do you teach people to believe in a future that they can't see or experience with their senses yet, but they've thought about enough times in their mind that their brain is literally changed to look like the event has already occurred?
Yeah, we do this naturally as young children in our front driveway, and we're bouncing the ball or we're playing on a sport in the park, and it's like, okay, well, and kids do this. They say, okay, well, who are you going to be? And I'm going to be Wayne Gretzky, or I'm going to be Michael Jordan, or like whatever the sport is, or I'll be Lionel Messi and you be Cristiano Ronaldo. And it's because we go to that place in our head of what could I do if I wasn't whatever you perceive yourself as right now. Because we all have this sometimes destructive narrative on what we think that we can and cannot do.
When I'm saying purpose, I think it's about defining your goals, defining what the life you're trying to build is, and having a real model for what you're doing. If you're doing this thing because it means something to you and you know exactly what success looks like for you, you want to make sure that you're not comparing yourself to other people. You want to compare yourself against the progress you've made
I can't find love because my mom preferred my brother. I can't be a success because I never went to university. I can't speak in public because I blush. And without understanding, when you describe why you can't, you keep it going. If you keep talking about the symptom, your mind keeps it alive, because whatever you focus on, you get more of.
All addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sugar, sex, shopping, come down to the same thing. Say it's down to childhood trauma. Trauma as being either a bad thing has happened to you or not enough good things have happened.
And so we all start now living into the future and living into the future. And I can't wait till I'm 15, 17. And then you look at what adults do and they're like, oh, as I grow older, apparently I get more serious and I get more pragmatic and I get more practical. And so all those things that I was doing as a kid were childish. Let's leave those things alone. And then we move away from those things, those traits, those qualities, those abilities that actually helped us develop really rapidly, find ourselves more quickly, because we perceive it as being childish. And yet they were the very things that helped you do difficult things and challenging things, like learn how to ride a bike, learn to associate with other people, a parent, an adult, someone else in society.
How do you teach a person to select a new possibility in their future and begin to emotionally embrace that future before it's made manifest to such a degree that their body, as their unconscious mind, is believing it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and they're signaling new genes and new ways ahead of the environment. Now, till their body begins to change to look like the event has already occurred.
But for many people, they need more. They need you to go back and unpick their story. Why do you do what you do? What happened to you? In understanding why, for most people, that's their aha moment. They go, oh my God, I never knew. That's why I do that. Oh. And then you add in, and now you know you never have to do it again.
If we don't feel whole in ourselves, right? If we feel that there's a bit missing, we will try to fill that with other things, whether it's sugar, whether it's booze, whether it's shopping. We will use other things to give us that buzz. And as we feel more complete, and this is how I feel I'm going on this journey, as I start to understand myself and let go of these negative emotions, I just feel those compensatory behaviors I'm no longer adopting, not because I'm actively trying not to do them, but because it's no longer serving me.
You walk up that canyon, or you're in the wilderness, or you're standing next to the ocean, and you're just experiencing the present moment. You're not thinking about how amazing you are, and you're not thinking about how worthless you are either. I think asking yourself questions, like I'm asking yourself tough questions. Like, who am I? What kind of person do I want to be? Is this the right thing to do? Pausing for a second instead of just reacting emotionally all the time is a way to kind of get out of that self-absorbed cycle.
It's that you have equipped yourself with mental tools, skills that are going to help you walk that with a heck of a lot more courage, grit, perseverance, and a playful mind. Because the playful mind is that golden key that finally unlocks the door into zone and flow state. I've just seen it thousands of times, because people think the zone and the flow state, that amazing place where you're just so engrossed in the moment, is this mythical point that you maybe get to 1 or 2 times in a season or in a year or in a week if you're a writer or creator or executive or something like that. No, it's a biological process, and it's a mental process that when you start toppling the dominoes, the likelihood of it coming to you just increases exponentially.
This intelligence that lives within you and I, that's governing everything material in this world. It's a self-organizing intelligence. You have access to it, so you better get present with it as well as you can get present with anything else. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That realm you can't experience with your senses. You could only experience with your awareness.
If I make it, I might get rejected. If I find love, they might leave. If I make all that money, people won't like me anymore. So you've got to smash out of the ballpark the fear of rejection. Always aware that someone's going to go, I hate your book. I don't like it. I'm like, oh, that's okay. They can't reject me. They might reject my book. Most people happen to love them, but to get anywhere in life, You have to get over the fear of rejection.
Even these small steps that people take they're starting to show themselves a bit of self-respect. They're starting to help themselves feel complete. Oh, I can do this. I didn't think that I was good enough to strength train. I didn't think I was the kind of person who could work out. Well, hold on a minute. Now you've been doing it every day for 6 months. I've got more energy. I can see the tone of my body improve. This feels great. What else can I achieve? Small things, when done consistently, lead to bigger and bigger things.
People have to take their attention off their bodies and go from a somebody to a nobody. Take their attention off the people in their life and go from that they identify with and go from a someone to a no one. Take their attention off the things in their life, their cell phone, their computer, their car, and go from something to nothing. Take their attention off where they sleep, where they work, where they're sitting, and go from somewhere to nowhere. Take their attention off the predictable future and the familiar past and time, and go from some time to no time.
Trying to actually be grateful for what you have, things that you would have killed like a year earlier to have, as soon as you have them, all of a sudden you think about how they could be better. And gratitude is incredibly important, not just because it's what you owe other people, but it makes you appreciate what you have versus focusing on what you could have or don't have, which are egotistical things and also recipes for misery.
You know, because the brain, when you're experiencing something that's new, will go to a place of, it'll look for pattern. If it can't find it, it'll go to a default mode of however you normally respond in a situation. So if you're a shy, nervous person, you're gonna show up now shy and nervous. Someone that you've always wanted to connect with, but you don't go up and introduce yourself, or you're in the boardroom and there's an opportunity for you to say something with a great idea, but then you don't because you're concerned about what everyone else is gonna think of you. So you had the capability, but it didn't get out.
Me has changed. Abundance to me has changed. Abundance means I have more than I need. Way more than I need. I know how to. So if I have way more than I need, and I know how to create it, so now you're no longer holding on. More of it. So now you're no longer holding on in scarcity.
Some people lack the courage to live the life they want and live only as they have begun. Right. So that's that. People lack the courage to change, to do abrupt changes, especially as they get later on in life. And so I think just because you're good at something or just because you've done it for a long time is not necessarily a reason to continue that thing.
But you see, the mind listens to everything you say. The mind is always switched on and it records everything and it never forgets. So when you feel enough, your life is so different to when you feel not enough.
Wealthy people that have created a lot of wealth in this work, they want to give back. They want to make a difference. And I think that that's how we're innately wired. I think we're all innately wired to care for one, to make a difference. In the living organism, our community, we heal one another. That's what we do. We inform one another. We encourage one another. We support one another. We shine for one another, not to outshine another person, to shine to show them they can shine. And that to me is super healthy.
The most powerful thing that changed my life was meaning. I said, what does this mean? Because out of every tragedy, out of every pain, it only gets healed when we find a deeper meaning. When we find there's a higher purpose to it.
The truth hurts, but you grow from pain. You can't know how to deal with success. You can't know how to deal with failures. You can't know how to deal with the bumps in the road that if you haven't had a taste of everything.
And if you and I want to look at the quality of our life, there's only a way to find it. One way, really, that's Ria. How do you feel every day?
Everyone is going to build their self-esteem around something. And being able to identify what you build your self-esteem around is critical. Once you identify what it is that you're proud of that makes you feel good about who you are, you need to ask yourself one very simple question. Does that move me towards my goals or not?
Our life is a combination of a certain amount of time and energy. Time is rolling away for all of us at the same pace. If you sit, it rolls away. If you sleep, it rolls away. If you do something, it goes away. If you don't do anything, it goes away. You're happy or miserable, it goes away. Time is running out for all of us. So it's only the energy that you can do different things with.
To me, there's no such thing as luck. All luck is preparation meeting opportunity. All right, nothing's just gonna happen. You know, everybody say it's all on you. It is all on you. There's other people that can educate you and help you, but you take these different experiences that you learn that stick with you. I mean, you may not remember a whole lot when you were 4 years old, but there's certain memories, there's certain things. You can use them to either harness you to greatness, or you can use them to kind of just keep you where you're at. And most people are just satisfied with at. There's always a next level. Your definition of greatness and what you want to achieve could be totally different than somebody else's.
Don't ever sit in a belief or mental state, anxiety, worry, anything, unless it's moving you towards your goal. But if it's not moving you towards your goal, stop. Stop. Like, why are you doing it?
Only to get successful at anything, all right? Either you're being attacked or you're attacked. I'd rather be the person that's attacked. That's the difference between those individuals that like really, really make it and the other ones that just make it.
The source of human experience is within you. Joy or misery, agony or ecstasy, pleasure or pain, everything comes from within. If you understand this much, this one fundamental thing has to get across to all the human beings on this planet. Your experience is entirely determined by you. Karma means action. That means when we say your life is your karma, we are saying your life is entirely your making, 100%. What happens in the world? There are many, many forces involved. What happens within me? It's 100% me.
You are unhappy and unfulfilled because you are not in a position where you are being challenged. And in the absence of you being challenged, it's impossible for you to be fulfilled. You are in a position where you can't fail. You are also in a position where you will never be fulfilled. And so when I finally figured that out, it was, okay, I need to go chase something that I can fail at. Not to fail, but because of the possibility of failure, guaranteeing that I will and I will grow from it.
We're trying so hard in our lives to fit in. We try to fit into certain groups, you know, among certain friends, yet the people we idolize are the ones that stand out. But when you're prepared, there is no fear. There is no fear of failure, okay? Because even if you walk out of something and you feel like you failed at it, your preparation is so strong that you're gonna take that failure and turn it into the outcome you desire. And most people stop at failure, okay? We've all failed at things. I'm gonna continue to fail at stuff, right? It's the most powerful tool you can use, but it all depends on how you use it. You know?
But what is that thing that you don't feel like you can admit, that you want to know more about than anyone else on this planet? That the more you went into it, the more you learned about it, the more you obsessed over it, the more you acquired the skill set needed to be great at that thing, that you were having a better and better time? And that what would failure look like? Could you fall on your face every day? Could you be ridiculed by your family every day for this and still love it? Right now, everyone listening to these words, I promise you, they know what it is, they just don't want to say it because it might be something that embarrasses them. You gotta be bold enough to live the life you were meant to live. That's just that. I can't give that to you.
So pain is a good thing physically, because that is your preservation, self-preservation mechanism. But suffering is something that you do in your mind. So pain that happens in your body, you take it in your mind and multiply it 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times, depending on how capable you are, and suffer it 1,000,000 times over. Right now, most human beings are like this. What happened 10 years ago, they can still suffer. What may happen day after tomorrow, they already suffer. They are not suffering life. They think they're suffering life. They're not suffering life. They are suffering the two most fantastic faculties that human beings alone have: a vivid sense of memory and a fantastic sense of imagination.
So it's the same thing with failure. It's how you use it. It's that drive inside of you. okay? It's what we talk about the dark side. The dark side is filled with failure, but it's the fuel that burns you like something that's never burned inside you before.
When I'm dropped to my knees, do not get on your knees with me. Do not put an arm around my shoulder and tell me everything is going to be okay. Stay standing. Offer me a hand. Pick me back up to my feet. Brush me off and paint a vision for success. Show me how I'm going to overcome this. Help me become the person that I'm trying to be. Help me be the person you believe I can be. And rebuild my sense of confidence. Rebuild that thing that I need to move forward.
Being a good student is a coachable skill, and I gave up on so many things in life, whether that was basketball. I concluded I was bad at languages in 9th grade, and so on and so forth. And I think so many people run into this where they abandon things and they accept a partial completeness, where they're like, my voice just isn't good. I'm just not good at X. And usually if you track that back, it's because a parent or a teacher or some authority figure criticized you really heavily. And it turns out that if you just get a better toolkit, sort of a better set of questions, that you can do things that seem impossible to the untrained.
Setting really low expectations. Not what a lot of people expect. And when I spoke to, say, Rick Rubin, when he has a musician who's stuck, great musician, but they've developed performance anxiety about songwriting for whatever reason, he will say, do you think you could get me one sentence or maybe 2 words that you like by tomorrow? That's it, 2 words. Can you do that for me? And he gives them a micro assignment. Best writing advice that I probably ever received, and I've received a lot of good writing advice, but I can get myself really wound up because I expect perfection to flow from my fingertips like magic, and that never happens. So then I beat the hell out of myself, and that makes me less likely to put pen to paper in the first place. I'll procrastinate, which is why if you write 2 crappy pages per day, you've won the day. That's a successful writing day. And that does a few things. It helps you to maintain enthusiasm because you're constantly winning. And of course, on many days, you'll write more than 2. You'll get to 2, then you go to 5 or to 10. But if you're on an off day, you write 2 crappy pages, even if you never use it, it's a successful day. And that, I think, for longer term projects and extended creativity is really important. But the story that this writer told me with that tip, he said, okay, this is where this comes from. Did you know that IBM, when it was the 800-pound gorilla, it was an undefeatable sales force? Do you know what one of their rules was? He's like, no. He says, well, what do you think their quotas were? And I was like, I'm sure their quotas were really high because they wanted to motivate their guys to get after it. He goes, no, their quotas were the lowest in the industry. And the rationale was, we don't want our salespeople to be intimidated to pick up the phone. We want them to feel like they're going to pass their quota quickly, which they did, and then they shot well past it and clobbered the competition. So the counterintuitive pairing of low expectations leading to higher performance is really odd. What that is performance anxiety that you've imposed on yourself because your expectations are too high. And it's like, just lower your standards. Lower your standards till you get started.
You're the average of the 5 people you associate with most. That's like a basic tenet of my life and Silicon Valley where I live. And my other career is investing in early stage startups. And I've been very successful in that. Twitter, Facebook, first pre-seed money advisor to Uber, first advisor to Evernote, Alibaba. Right. What you realize though when you meet these people, when you sit down and talk to the people who start those types of companies, and by the way, like they all start out where everyone else starts out. And that's another, like you hear these criticisms of like, oh, that's easy, you have a really big blog. Right. And it's like, well, I started with 0 readers, just like everybody else. Right. And you find that those thinkers and doers fall into the category of examining the anomalies as opposed to dismissing them. So I think that there are kind of 2 binary choices that you have, and there are probably others. But when you see someone who's doing something that you think is really incredible, you can either build yourself up or tear them down to make yourself feel better. Right. And tearing them down doesn't do anything for you. It's an illusion. I think it was Carlos Castaneda, actually, who said, you know, whether you make yourself happy or you make yourself miserable, the amount of energy required is the same. So it's like focus on building yourself up. And the way you do that is by asking better questions. And the power of these questions is just incredible. So Peter Thiel, for instance, the first money into Facebook, co-founder of PayPal, co-founder of Palantir, I mean, a billionaire many times over. One of Peter's favorite questions is, why can't you accomplish your 10-year goal in the next 6 months? And when you apply these ridiculous constraints, your thinking has to change. You can't just upshift 1 year. You have to get an entirely new car to think about that, so to speak. And these guys just do not accept the shoulds and the musts at all. So you want to look for the odd behaviors that produce good results and that can be replicated. So for instance, if you want to become a world-class learner, treat reality as negotiable, because ultimately what we have to do, what we should do, are usually a very fragile collection of just socially reinforced beliefs. And just because something is said often does not make it true. Like, it takes a lifetime to learn a language. Complete nonsense. Complete. Adults can learn languages 5 to 10 times faster than children, period. You know, kids just don't have jobs and mortgages.
If more information were the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs. Just absorbing, not even absorbing, just reading and watching and listening to more isn't enough. Like, you have to apply it. You have to use incentives. You have to have rewards and punishments set for yourself so you actually get things done, timelines, etc. So that's one. Another one is don't be a donkey. And the reason is there's I want to say it might be a philosopher's paradox, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a parable about Buridan's ass. So Buridan's ass is about a donkey. It's about a donkey who is thirsty and hungry, and there's water on one side, a few feet away, and hay on the other. And he can't decide whether to do the hay first, or the water. The hay or the water, and he dies of thirst at the end of it. He couldn't do them sequentially. In effect, you can do almost everything you want in life, but you can't do it at the same time. Right. And if you can just dedicate yourself to one thing for even a year, and then the next thing for a year, you can do those 10 things. But if you try to do all 10 at once, you're gonna be Buridan's ass. You go, should I do this? Should I do this? Or should I focus on this? Or should I focus on this? So don't be a donkey.
It's so easy to sit behind screens and sit on our couches and just learn new information. It feels good and it's safe. There's no risk in watching a YouTube video. And it's so easy to create excuses for why we haven't taken our first step. Maybe it just seems all too big. You don't know where to start. But let's consider Tim Ferriss's idea today. What's the smallest possible step that you can take today that will bring you that much closer to achieving your goal? If you take that small step, I promise you that the rest of the road will seem a whole lot less daunting.
You have to have a constant vision of what it is you want to achieve, see it accomplished, and go all out. Find a way to win. Dr. Norman Cousins, he wrote a book called The Biology of Hope. And he talked about the fact that when something happens to you, you don't deny it, you defy it. And I was defiant that I'm going to beat this, I'm going to handle this. That there are people who many times when something happens to them, that they embrace it from a place of fear and it takes them out. And L.C. Robinson said, things may happen to you and things may happen around you, but the most important things are the things that happen in you. And you have to stand up inside yourself and deal with it and handle it. Get out from under the labels. And the most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe that I can do it. When you don't know what's impacting you, and it's something that's holding you down and you're not aware of it. You live in a dominant culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self and your belief in yourself, and you have to learn ways in which you can begin to connect with this power that you have within yourself to handle where you are. The key is to be constantly in a perpetual process of discovering the truth of who you are and fighting constantly to look for ways in which you can escape the inner conversation, because how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. So that's an ongoing process, constantly interrupting that conversation, what psychologists call your self-explanatory style, because life is going to beat up on you in so many ways, and many things, they come back, you know, negative thoughts and how you feel about yourself, they don't die. They come back once you stop doing the maintenance work on your mind, listening to motivational messages, going to seminars and workshops, spending time quietly listening to the still small voice within. Who am I really? Is this really me? Am I giving my best? Am I just reflecting what's around me? Because all of these various things affect how we show up in life. And so having a strategy to continuously find ourselves reaching higher. Robert Schuller had a book, is not very popular, but I loved it. It's called Peak to Peak, U-P-E-A-K to P-E-E-K, because you're constantly reaching higher to find out and discover your better self. Richard Wright said it best. He said, the impulse to dream has slowly been beaten out of me through the experiences of life. So when you live in a culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self, where you are marginalized, where you have a feeling of being hopeless and powerless, and you're terrorized, you unconsciously operate within the parameters of what has been put in place. Like you're driving on the expressway, the 405, and you'll get off on an exit that you weren't going in that direction, but you unconsciously did it because you've done it so many times that many people, because they're not making a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to think outside of what life has thrown at them, they end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. Einstein said that thinking that has brought me this far has created some problems that this thinking can't solve. And so through relationships, through reading, through studies, through goals and dreams beyond your comfort zone, it allows you to begin to live out of your imagination as opposed to out of your history. Disney said, the imagination is a preview of what's to come. I believe that all of us have a responsibility, that we want to live a life that will outlive us. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that once a man or woman's mind has been expanded with an idea, concept, or experience, it can never be satisfied to going back to where it was. And so someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. If you want to become successful in life, number one, you got to change your mindset. He said, you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. Number two, practice OQP. Only quality people. Develop your communication skills, because once you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. Those are three major things that you want to work on that will liberate you. It will help to escape out of where you are right now, because I see you watching me and I know you want more. I can see the hunger. You get hungry by finding something that's you. I believe that all of us are born unique, but most of us die copies. You got to find out what is it that turns you on, what resonates with you. The key to that hunger-driven life is a heart-centered life. I didn't do what I'm doing for years because of my programming, because of the culture in which I was raised in. I would see other people with degrees and PhDs and MBAs and credentials I don't have, and I convinced myself I couldn't do it. And not only someone's opinion of you does not have to determine your reality. He said that you have to work on yourself and you have to have an unstoppable attitude, and no excuse is acceptable, and you've got to make it a priority, a non-negotiable in your life, and hold a constant vision of what it is you want to achieve, see it accomplished, and go all out. Find a way to win. In spite of the setbacks, in spite of the disappointments, in spite of your failures, I tell people, you will fail your way to success. I have a saying, is life knocks you down trying to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up.
I'd ask people what are their goals, and they're like, oh, I want to go to the gym more. That's not a goal. That's a habit. People like, I want to get in better shape. That's not specific. It's got to be like a target, something you can hit. And how you build that in your mind, the vision, it's very, very important as you bombard your subconscious. And many of you are doing mind movies or vision boards, things like that. But to really ingrain this into your being is going to be key. And so I love this phrase. This is the ultimate self-development formula that you've all heard before: be, do, have. And so what you want to have, that's your goals, but all that's supported by your habits, your rituals, your standards, your story, your state. It's all the things that you're doing. And of course, I know we've all heard this before, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And so it's all in the context of who you be, because two people can do the same things, have the same habits, have the same job, have the same script, have the same goals, but one person will achieve it and one person not, based on the context of who they be. And who you be is all about what you value. People define their values. And because if I asked you what you value, or anybody, they're like success, love, happiness, wealth. But they say that's what they want their values to be, but that's not what their values are. So you could ask somebody what their values are by asking them questions like, if your house was about to burn down and you can only grab 3 things, what would you grab and what do they mean to you? Where do you spend your money? Where do you spend your time? Who do you spend your time with, and what do they do for you? Like, reverse engineer what people's values are by looking at their actual habits and the way they show up. And if they sat in silence for an hour, unless you're a master meditator, our minds are going to drift somewhere. And so where does the mind go? It goes to what you value. And a lot of times what we want and what we value are in conflict. People want to be successful, but they actually value comfort and laziness and significance and looking good, looking like a success, more than actually being successful. So that takes work. So habits versus goals, because those are the two things that you really want to dial in here at the end of the year, and always working on your values, always working on your character development. Because I love this phrase from Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, who you are speaks so loudly, people can't even hear what you say. So as you're practicing those scripts, as you're sharing your goals, you've got to dial this in, and you got to make sure that there's an alignment, because most people have incongruency in their life. Their words are here with their goals. They say they're going to do something. Their words are here, but their actions are here, or their habits. Their mind's all over the place, emotionally scattered. But when your words, your thoughts, your actions are all in alignment, you say what you mean what you say, and your habits are in alignment with your goals, that is key. And things start to show up for you and start to open up for you. And so getting to the gym more, that's a habit. But you want to be specific even in that. It's finding something like going to the gym and then rating yourself. So if you had a spreadsheet and you could say like water intake, or, go to the gym and 5 days a week or whatever it is. So you have this habit, but rating yourself, because sometimes you have shit workouts. Sometimes you work and you do prospecting or you're on sales calls and you did the habit, you did the thing, but you did it at like a low standard. And really dialing in these habits and tying that to your identity. I love that Tony's got this thing called strategy, story, state, but we also add standard. And so there are strategies in what you can do in your business and your marketing and everything, but all that's in the context of your story. And you have a story, consciously or unconsciously, you tell about yourself, the market, your past, about the future, whatever. And then there's a state, there's a habitual pattern of what you focus on, the language that you use, the meaning that you attach to things, and then also how you ingrain all this in your physiology to have physical mastery over these concepts where it's in you as you, and you're just pushing these things from a place of unlimited resources, of boundless energy, that is something's coming through you because you are in alignment, and that's when things really begin to get juicy. So T is based upon the foundation. So you see all these buildings and you see all the success of other people, you see what they've created, but there's foundation, there's things beneath the surface that you can't even see. And that's the habits, that's the rituals. As our main man Tony always says, you're rewarded in public for what you practice in private. And so you getting really clear on what you want to practice, what you want to commit to, and being honest with yourself. And having that integrity with yourself. And integrity means wholeness. And I love this concept of integrity, because you even hear this word, like somebody says, you give your word. And it used to be, like 100 years ago, if you broke your word, like you ruined your family's name. Now people lie all the time and it's not a big deal. So keeping this integrity with yourself, it's like integrity is like wholeness and complete. And when you give somebody your word, it's like you're giving them something. And then if you keep your word, you put something out there, like an intention, like a goal, you've kept your word, you put it out there, and then it comes back to you, and now it comes back to you stronger. Because now your mind and you're bonded to that person, and you've kept a promise to them, and you put it out there, you gave them your word, and then you kept it. And now when it comes back to you, you're actually bonded to that person where now energetically they're gonna support you. I think it's so important for us to be in integrity with ourselves, what we say that we're gonna do, and making sure that we look down at what we track daily and weekly and monthly and yearly, whatever it is, to have this big plan for our lives to make sure that we're living in alignment with our values so that we can really show up powerfully, not only for ourselves, but for our families, for our companies, for humanity. And life supports that, what supports life. And having a bigger vision than just yourself is what's going to connect you and really give you the emotional fuel that you need to step outside of yourself and be bigger than any challenge that could ever happen to you.